first off, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you are not familiar with me, my name is Atish. I'm a producer and DJ based out of New York City. I also run a label called Masi, and this is a video in a series where I host artists who I love and respect, and we do a deep dive on Ableton or Logic, and we get to dissect the track that they made and also a lot of the creative process. And today's guest is Birds of Paradise, who I am a huge fan of, and also known as David Sable. And he's very well respected within the dub techno community, among others. And he actually did a vinyl release with us on Masi called Kop. Did I pronounce that right, David?
Yeah, Kop, but it's the same.
I tried. And it was a great vinyl release. It actually sold out, and we have some tracks. Maybe we'll do another vinyl release with you soon. I would be very excited.
Yeah, for sure.
But
always.
For today, we're going to walk through a track of his called Time Walk, and this was released on Hypnus Records, which, as an aside, is one of my favorite record labels making music right now. So this was a really great tune off a really great record, and let's just dig in and welcome to the stream, David.
Thank you, sir. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
And hi to everybody in the chat and in that's watching. Yeah, as Atish said, this track, the reason I chose this track is because it's in a lot of ways like it's what I want my music to be. It's also a bit easier because it shows all the methods I use, but it's made in the box. Like only on the computer, because usually I work a lot more with hardware stuff, but it has the same kind of idea. And also I think it was interesting because it's a track that doesn't really have a hook. It's like a track that's because working with a hook, like if you really work with like you have some elements, and I felt that the record we were making in Masi, all of those tracks to me had more hook. Maybe one of them didn't have so much of a hook, but when you have a hook, you kind of design around that. And this song is more like some kind of fundamental, like my view of music, if you will. So there's not, to me, it's not anything is, nothing is really in focus, which I love, which is something I think about a lot when I make music.
Awesome. So let's start. If people haven't heard the track before, let's just listen through the final mastered version of the track first.
Yeah, sure.
And
sure.
Feel free as we're listening through if you just want to talk about it a little bit more, or we can just have some.
For sure. Let's do it. So this is the mastered version. I don't know if I put it on full volume here. If it's too loud, tell me.
Okay. As we're listening, where was your headspace at? Did you have an idea of the type of record you wanted to create, or you had an intention, or what was in your mind when you were creating this?
This track it was released like a 3-part release, so it was three vinyls, and this was just like sleeper track of the second part. This I needed to make some kind of track that was this was what like I guess when you make a DJ set and you wanted to make a track to glue it all together. I wanted to make something that just had like a lot of flavor and a lot of textures and a lot of like I wanted to make one of those tracks that doesn't have a break. I wanted to be like a minimalistic track, if you will. And a lot of like, I mean, I'm also very inspired by like krautrock and like free jazz and all of that. sounded so male and to make. I was trying to make something that wasn't cool, basically, and I wanted to just create space and time with something that's and that also didn't get boring. Like, it's always hard to. I don't know if I succeeded. It was an experiment to like see if I could make time stand still for 5 minutes. If you know what I mean. That was the thought. But as we said, in the end of the day, it's only the technical music. Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, for sure. And also, it was also very important to me that it was 120 because
120 BPM.
yeah, because I wanted it to be have some relation to the second, like I wanted it to be very relatable to something very within time, you know, that we can all perceive. Like, I think you can always, to me at least, I get inspired by like, but usually I think maybe a little bit slower than the second, about heartbeats and like this relations we had to have to time. So this one I wanted to keep 120 short. It's almost over. And there's also a very lazy ending.
Very sorry, I can't hear you.
It's a very lazy ending.
Okay. Beautiful.
There we go.
Great tune.
Perfect.
All right, so now that we're all familiar with it and appreciate giving the context around it,
Yep.
I think a great place to start would be if we could look at all the various layers that you have in the track and kind of
Yeah.
your thought process, how you chose those, what you used to create them.
Yeah. I basically usually when I work with a track, I make like three arrange. One of the reasons I do this is I make three arrangements. So I make first one arrangement with just the beats. I treat like Logic like a beat groove box, so to say. If I had like a 8-track, you know, like a digitact or something, like a groove, like a sampler or something. So the first track is usually like it would be like a could be a song of its own, I guess. But I try to create a like a sound. I don't know if you say sound picture, like
Sure.
the whole yeah
Sure.
sound picture. I try to create a sound picture that is almost full, but could be, but I still have room to put shit in,
Sure.
so to speak.
When
So
you
that's
Oh, sorry.
mm,
When you define a sound picture as full, is this something that you feel, or do you look at it in the in the EQ spectrum, saying I need to put an element here to fill it? How do you decide when something is full? Is this through analytics or through feeling?
I only through the feeling, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I mean, I also have the system that I try to work with something a few days, like 3 days or something, to sometimes you can make something in one day and it can feel so great, and it's just that the the joyful first day, like, and then you can feel the second day that there is actually stuff are needed to bring it to a full listening experience in a way.
Sure.
So it's yeah, but I try to make it as with just a feeling. I'm not one of those people who like I don't have really a system. I don't work with like groups. I don't work with side chain. Very rarely work with side chain. I work very much like you would like with a band. It's just track by track. Like it's very. I think it's for me that's good. to do it in that way. And I also work. I also don't start with a beat. I don't. I start with like some where at some point I find like interesting. Usually it's like within synthesizers. I think in this, I think it's maybe 45 tracks or something. This track,
Mm.
40 channels, and I think I have not one single sample. Everything is synthesized
Oh,
in
okay,
some way.
great. So you
Mm.
said your this song is broken into three essentially Logic
Yeah,
projects. And
yeah,
so
for
was
sure.
this the first iteration or the second or the
This
third
is
one?
the first. This is the first iteration.
Okay, great. Could we solo some of those and walk through
Yeah,
what are
for
the
sure.
elements that compose it?
Yeah. So the main element, like what I made first, are these three like wavy sounds that I. This was the first thing I made. So this is like the fundament of the track. It's like a very peaceful, like
Definitely.
moving waves, you know.
Hmm. And it's just one note just evolving.
Yeah, it's three synthesizers combined.
Got it.
It's like I'm sorry I don't have the original synth. It's a Surge synth. I use the Surge for almost everything.
Well, I think that's actually, you're apologizing
This
for
one.
not having the original, but I think that speaks to one of the, oh, you do have it.
Yeah, yeah. This is not that one, but this
Okay,
is the
got it.
same synthesizers.
I
Yeah.
actually think this is a great opportunity, which we were talking about earlier, which
Hmm.
is you actually commit to your ideas very, very early in the process.
Yeah,
So, I
for
mean,
sure.
for you, it doesn't even matter if you have access to the original sound or not.
No, 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 no. I'm very unforgiving. I usually even when throw away the arrangements very quickly, the whole Logic file, and I don't make copies or anything. I try to get rid of stuff very. Yeah, I think it's good for the process to not to like bounce stuff out and like be finished with that with so you don't get stuck in like going back and changing stuff and like especially like I know a lot of people struggle with like the kick and stuff like this, and I really don't care about that, and I don't work like that. I think like when I made this first arrangement, this is set. Like I'm gonna bounce it out and I'm gonna work with that. I'm gonna put like a little, very 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 small limiter on the master, and then I'm not gonna change that.
Sure. And I think
Mm.
that's actually there's a good lesson in there. And with some of my students who I'm working with in my program, I mean, and for me and for most artists, it's very hard to go from that
Mm-hmm.
85% completion point to the 100% completion point. I see in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
own
yeah,
work, I sit there trying to get this state of perfection. I'm tweaking the
yeah,
synth,
yeah.
trying to get the,
Mm-hmm.
get the timing exactly right, or, just get the
Mm-hmm.
cutoff exactly right. But I think
Yeah,
it seems like, your philosophy is if you just commit those ideas, just accept
yeah,
it
yeah,
and
yeah,
don't obsess and just move forward.
yeah, yeah,
Ultimately,
yeah, yeah,
you'll be more efficient in your work, and it's part of the art is
yeah,
letting
yeah,
go, would you say?
yeah, yeah, for sure. And one tip I can get there, one thing I do a lot is use a lot of random elements in the
Mm-hmm.
songs. I use a lot of like sample and hold based stuff and a lot of like free moving LFOs and stuff that's so as I can always like complain. I mean, it wasn't me; it was the computer. So I have a lot of like which to me helps a little bit because it's like
Sure.
and it's also very fun to as an artist. I mean, you can only create what's maybe here. To get over here, you have to completely break the bubble, and to do that, you have to take like extreme measurements. And I think random, for me, using a lot of probability and random is a way to just break the bubble. And I think that if you think a lot about this, and I also struggle with the 85 to 100 thing, uh, for sure. Me too, but I think it helps to have a lot of I mean, if you have been like experimental enough, I think you have a lot of like confidence in that you are trying something out. If you know what I mean, if it
Sure,
makes sense,
sure,
if
sure,
the English works, like you can put confidence in that you were experimenting. To me, that's yeah,
sure.
there's some confidence there.
Sure.
Mm.
And to extent, I mean, we've only gone through 3 tracks, but we're already getting to I think the
Yeah,
exciting I think this is some of the most exciting thing talking about music as the creative process, which is,
yeah, yeah.
you would you agree, you can make your music with confidence and you can commit to these ideas. And I think
Hmm.
also part of it is not being obsessed with every single piece of work being perfect
Yeah, for
and
sure, for
being
sure.
comfortable with throwing away pieces of work after you're
Hmm.
finished, and everything doesn't have to be released. And if it's not released, you can just say, well, this is one step closer to me understanding what I want to do next time.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. And it's so hard. I mean, as we spoke about when we talked the last time, like if you are working by yourself, I guess most people are. If you're working with somebody else, if you're like a duo or something, it's very like if you can bounce things off each other. Or I think you need to be a duo. I don't think it really works like bouncing off like a label manager. Like it's such a private process making music, and these things are
Absolutely.
so private that you need like methods and processes. You need to find your own way to finish stuff, and that's what, like you said, it's very important to finish stuff and throw stuff away because you have to learn your own process, because this is a fight within yourself making this kind of music.
It's a huge huge never ending battle,
Yeah, for sure.
but the more you finish, the better you get at it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Cool.
I totally agree.
Cool. So, just a quick thing for anyone who's tuned in on Twitch or Facebook. Feel free to jump in on YouTube if you want to chime in and chat and ask questions. And for those of you on YouTube, David is very welcome to answering questions from the
Oh,
chat.
always, always.
So let's jump through some a few more textures.
Hmm. Yeah, so I can start with the playing the how it sounds. Just the first basic thing I make. So
Sure.
this is the first. Okay, it's without. So this is the first loop. This is in the first arrangement.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I have here is I use the heartbeats from Sound Toys.
Okay.
I think it's a very good drum synth. It has has one 909 and one 808 kind of kick, and it has. I think for being a digital synthesizer, it's trying to sound analog. I think it's the best thing I ever found. So I use this for most of my drums in this track. Nowadays, I also use sometimes the kick two from
Oh yes.
whatever they. Yeah, sometimes I feel that to me has been somewhat hurtful because it's such a strong sound in that one. It's so powerful that I usually when I make a kick or a drum in like I just want the beat to pump the rhythm of the track. I don't want it to take over. So, and I think kick two. I think it's great if you like sit with it and you can be so like precise with it. I don't know if you teach what you teach your students and what they work with.
It's kind of whatever the students work with. We try
Uh
and
huh.
mold
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
adapt to that. Because there's really never any right or wrong answers for which
Of
tool you
course,
use.
of course, of course. For me, it's been very helpful to just think about like not putting too much thought into like the fundament. Just thinking about this is actually something Dorisburg, Alexander Berg taught me. Like not do not think too much about the kick or the groove. Just make it like make it stomp the beat, and then go for the next thing, and then you can maybe go back. But
Hmm.
yeah.
And
So
I
this is
oh
sorry.
I actually love hearing that, and this is one of the why I love talking to you is I hear so many ideas that completely go against what I had been taught when I learned how to make music.
Hmm.
When I read books about mixing or dance music production, they say the kick is the
Yeah.
most important element of any
Yeah.
dance track. And what you do with the kick, the rest of the
Hmm.
vibe of the track will follow. So, this one book I read said you
Hmm.
should spend 2 days, shaping your perfect
No,
kick, and I had all this pressure on
dear
myself saying,
Lord.
I don't want to spend 2 days shaping a kick. I want to make my music. So you heard
Yeah.
it from Birds of Paradise. Don't waste your time on a kick, and your music is still beautiful and people love it. And,
Yeah.
spend the time on what you want to spend time on, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And don't reinvent the wheel every track. I mean, use the same kick, and I mean, it's. I think far too many people are like thinking they have to change everything. You can be like creative in some other. There's always another point where you can be creative. You don't have to use like make a completely different thing every time. You know, I think that's also if you have a good kick, use that kick.
Sure. And thinking about a full piece of work, we all want music that is unique and that stands out.
Hmm.
And for music to
Hmm.
be unique, not every single decision has to be a unique decision. You only need
Exactly.
one or two aspects
Yeah, for
of a
sure.
piece of work to be different than the rest, for that
Yeah,
entire
for
piece of
sure.
work to be different. So just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
focus
yeah.
on the things that are
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah.
a few but interesting things.
For sure. If you do, I think it's so easy, especially with electronic music, where you don't really have like it's easier with like instruments and stuff because it had to me. This is just speaking from what I feel, but when you have people playing, there's so much personality in as how a person touches a string or something, and I think that to get there with like if you experiment in every track everywhere, I think you usually to me this is just a hype. It's very easy, even though even if you have like you have one track going in 8 by 8, 7 by 8, one 5 by 8, and you have a kick in like goes every third beat, and you do all of this rhythmical composition. Usually, what you end up is like very similar EDM. It sounds EDM to me. Like
Mm.
to be creative, you have to. I think it's better to like you do it in small volumes. Like you said, you don't focus on like being experimental in some ways, and then you can like, yeah, as you said.
Cool, cool.
Yeah,
All right, let's move on to some more
yeah.
elements.
This is the just very simple little hat and snare,
Great.
super simple. And then this is the just a stab that goes through the whole track, also very simple. It's a little bit of randomness to it, so it goes like changes ever so slightly every time.
The timing or the
The
pitch or
the the pitch, the not the pitch, the opening of the filter.
the cutoff? Okay, got it, got it.
Yeah, I hear that they are striking a little bit different every time. And then this is the low end package, like the bass package. All of these four. So this is I perceive all of these four as the bass of the track.
Great.
So what we have here is one like Basil from Yuhi. I think it's a very good, very good synthesizer. I don't know if anybody tried it,
Oh,
but
no.
it has a very good like very good to create like what those. I think one problem with digital synthesizers is the what do you say the low mids
Mm-hmm.
to make them really warm. And I think this, like all of the Yuhi stuff, also the Diva, if you try
Oh,
that
I
maybe.
love the diva.
Yeah, I think
Very
that's
much.
that. Yeah, it has wonderful like low mid kind of feel to it, really warm and fluffy. Uh, so that's that, and then there's
Can we just quickly just listen to that alone?
mhm. This is a very like I like to keep. I'm not one of those producers who cuts all of the low end in things. Like I think this when you usually tutorials on like producing, people are saying that you should cut everything below 200 in everything,
Mm.
and I disagree. I think you don't need to do that. It's maybe important. I can see the point from like if you're playing like a huge PA system, like there's some points to be made there, but generally I don't think you need to do so much cutting in the low end as you think. I
Sure.
think you can at least not make it like those steep cutoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this is just something that creates a little bit of rhythm,
Cool.
and it goes along with the kick, like it messes with the ultra low end a little bit. So this is the bongo, which also panned a little bit. Super simple, just to create some movement. Uh, this is also like a movement kind of thing, and then we have the like main FM bass.
Yep. And what's
And
great is these are all four very simple ideas going on, but
yeah,
the
yeah.
timing and the placement of them having a conversation with one another is what
Hmm.
makes it exciting, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is what I do in every like I never I use very simple elements. I usually work with like from sine waves. I think to me it's more fun to work like this with very simple synthesizers that go from very simple sounds instead of opening something like I don't know Omnisphere and it's just you try one sound and it sounds like an orchestra in just that sound. To me, I know people make great stuff with that, but to me it doesn't. I feel stuck when it's too. It's to me it's better to work with like 10 channels of small sounds and then I can fit them like however I want within the sound spectrum.
Sure. And
So
I think we see
mm,
a recurring theme here in the way you make music, which is fewer decisions and
mhm,
simplicity is better,
mm, yeah, for
basically,
sure.
right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So it's very of sure, and I think this is a good example. This is just a basic, I think C minor chord. It's just the simplest sine wave. It's just sine waves, nothing more. Like, and it's also great to work with sine waves because it could create so much room in your mix because there's no. I mean, there's so little color there, but there's so much feel to me.
Yeah.
And then we have the kick, which is just a heartbeat. Somewhere, I think it's somewhere in between 808 and a 909, kind of. Very simple. Not much on it. Not even anything on it. It's bounced, so I think maybe I have a little bit of a compressor on it, but very little.
Great.
Super simple. Yeah. So that's basically the whole first layer of the track.
So basically, you put these elements, looks like maybe 11, 12, 13 elements, and this was
Mm-hmm.
the idea that you had. And you said, okay, this is my idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you are essentially committing to these ideas, and then you created another logic
Yeah.
project,
Exactly.
picking up where this left off and never looking back.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
I
what's the.
mean, of course,
Oh, sorry.
with other tracks, there's been moments where I looked back. I wouldn't say like sometimes I have to look back. It's not with this I didn't, but it's not like once every fifth times or something I have to go back because I created something that it's like it's not really I don't want it anymore basically. But usually yeah, this is set in stone from this point on.
And how much time, let's just say for this track, did you spend in that first project defining what the groove is? Is this something like a few hours or a few days or
Probably 30 minutes or
30
something.
minutes?
Very
Okay,
yeah, something like that.
great.
But the, usually every other time I sit with Logic or with any synthesizer or anything, I usually uh, like every other time I make songs, and every other time I just sit and make sounds.
Hmm.
So it, usually when I start making a track, I already made like 20 or 30 sounds that I like. So I have like a bank of presets and stuff that I made that I like. So it's in one way I could say that it took longer because I had to make the sounds, but
Ah, sure, sure.
yeah.
What I like about that idea, and this touches on on what we had discussed before is some of your sessions in the DAW, you're not focused on an end goal of a track that you're going to create or an EP that you're going to
No.
release or the audience that you're thinking about or what label you want to work with. You're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in your zone, not thinking about the outcome and just creating sounds
yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
enjoyment of making sounds. And I think for me, that's been a hard shift for me to make because I used to be in this mindset of everything has to have some end goal purpose
Ah,
of
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to release, or I want to release 3 EPs in a year. But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
taking
yeah.
that time to just enjoy your time in your DAW without thinking about the
Ah,
end
for
goal or
sure.
how this fits in the big picture and throwing maybe half those textures away
Ah, for sure, for
is
sure.
valuable in the long run.
Yeah, and that's also where I think it's so. I always value like gear or plugins that are inspiring more than plugins that are um, sound good. I think it's more important to have if you're gonna buy like a piece of gear. To me, like a very good sounding like Moog or something is not very interesting. Like because it doesn't put me in a very interesting place. Like in terms of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to be inspired by my gear and like I want my gear to take me weird places.
Absolutely. Uh, on that note, I think it's a great chance. What do you wait for creativity or inspiration to strike you, then you run into the studio, or do you say I'm gonna go into the studio and just see what bubbles up? Where does your creativity get channeled from?
I never. I mean, I'm always so inspired by people that like have an idea for a song, and then they make that song. That never happened to me in my life.
Yeah, me too.
Like I like sit. I want to like. I'm bored and I open Logic like a few times a day, and stuff comes out. I get inspired by something that I hear. It's like I think Brian Eno said like you're in these days you're kind of a gardener. Like you have all these sounds and you pick. It's like you're picking a bouquet of roses or something, and you know designing a room more than like actually being one of those old geniuses.
Sure, sure, yeah. No, that's a great analogy. Yeah, you have a garden, and
Hmm.
you just collect and arrange things that you happen to see around you, rather than
Yeah, for sure,
saying this is
for
what I
sure.
want my flower bouquet to look like when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's great, and I think that that could put a lot of people at ease that you don't have to be struck with flashes of inspiration to do great things.
Yeah, for sure.
Just give them the space to emerge on their
Yeah,
own.
yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, no, I'm very rarely like. Of course, sometimes you can find a sample. Maybe you can find like something that you really wanna. You can have the idea, like that you want to combine something. Like you want to make a track with a, like I don't know, with a toast, like a somebody rapping over it or something like that. I wouldn't do that, but you know, if you had those kind of ideas has popped up, like, or I sometimes I'm on like freesound.org and I find some like choir sample that I want to make something of or something like that. And also, I mean, it's also fun to sometimes. I think you spoke about that in some of your videos too. Replicate replicate something badly.
Oh yes.
You know, take a track. My first release was actually a bad replica of Persuader track.
Hmm. Ah.
But I was not trying to like make it in any way that, but it was like a very loosely based, and it was what I could do in that moment. So I knew I was getting it all wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what David was referencing in the last tutorial video I did with Mark Slee, we were saying sometimes when I hit a creative wall, I'll literally put a track that I like in one of the channels and try and recreate it exactly.
Hmm.
And one, it's a great learning opportunity to realize these are the things that go
Hmm.
into making something great. But two, because we're going to do a terrible job at it, that's one way to learn it. Or we're going to do it with our personal style and our personal flair, where it becomes
Hmm.
ours in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
a one-to-one ripoff isn't really ours, but things start to emerge, and then after a while, maybe we say, okay, maybe now I'm gonna make my own creative choices and take it in this direction or do this and this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it to be a
Mm-hmm.
great unblocker for creativity and a great opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
learn as well.
For sure, for sure. I love that. But that's sometimes usually I think it's such a like making this kind of music. It's almost like making laying a puzzle for me. Like it's of course it's emotional, but it's very much like just you know freeing up space in the head. It's like a
Absolutely.
friend told to me like when you listen to like drone music or ambient music in a certain way, and when it comes to a certain volume, it's almost like you didn't know you had your organs were rearranged in your body, and all of a sudden they just click into place, you know.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
sometimes making this kind of music can have that when it's good, and when you feel like you have flow and everything. It's just like everything in your body kind of clicks together.
Absolutely. So let's dig in. This is the second project out of
Yeah,
three
yeah,
for this song. So I'm
yeah.
curious to see what are the evolutions in this project
Mm-hmm.
two, and what are the differences?
Yeah, so okay, so here we got this is just the bounced versions of every color you see here. So I have four channels of arpeggios. I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight channels of more drums. I have seven channels of pads and ambience, and then I have another six channels of some kind of ambient sound.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is I can play the whole. Maybe I can play this track without the first one.
Sure.
Let's see if that
Yeah.
works.
Great.
So this is the newly added stuff. And then I can drop in the yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the second arrangement. So again, this is like you can like this is where I get go a little bit deeper into like really filling up the space, like texture wise, like
Sure.
with everything. And then in the third arrange, I create like these very the louder instances. You know, if you want something to really like a chord that just takes over the picture or a fill in or something, like I really try to see in what I created here and where the track needs energy. So instead of like going back and like thinking about like where do I need a break or like
Mm-hmm.
I think like okay here it's lost its energy, maybe I needed something here, and
Sure.
then like you know I put in textures and color where I think it's needed. Basically, that's the third arrange.
I think this is what you're touching on is one of the in my own work and the work that I discuss with my students is deciding when you need to put those flashes of energy or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
excitement and you mentioned at a high level whenever you feel like it's losing energy, how do you listen for that, especially when we're sitting in the DAW and we've heard this loop for 5 hours straight
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
Is there
yeah.
is there any way you could describe how someone could maybe get more attuned to knowing when to put these splashes in? And at the same time, I also hear demos in music where they're putting too many ideas in. How do you find that
Mm-hmm.
right balance between keeping it interesting but not doing too much?
Um, I think it's like it's very different from different tracks. I think it's good for you to just like create the underlying lying grid, to be very practical about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you decide that every eight, it's like making it easy for yourself. Like every fourth bar, something can happen, or it could not happen. And then you can like use a coin or anything, like something like you can. To me, it's that, but on the other hand, that's how my music sounds. But I think that like you could just put a grid in your head, and at every given moment, you should just make a very simple decision and not making a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
should something happen or should it not happen? Like, give it A or B. Like,
Sure.
not make it be the whole world. Like, usually you can like sit down, and if something has too much energy and stuff, it's, to me, those kind of decisions are easy to. That's why I have this third arrangement, and I keep that to last because it's easiest for me to go back to the third to the third arrangement and see if I fucked up the energy somehow. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Mm.
Cool. So any more of these tracks that you want to go? This is we're looking at project two, right?
Yeah, this
Cool.
is Project 2. Mm-mm.
Um, Maybe you want to just jump through a couple more textures here before we jump to project three.
Yeah, so this is like in the ARP channels again. I'm trying to work very like this is the main ARP. It's very simple. Also, just sine waves with a very hard attack, and with a simple LFO going not in rhythm. Uh, and then on that, I have just an overlay of.
What's that automating in right now?
That's the second ARP.
Got it.
So that's, and with that, that's. And then so when you have all of four of them. But we all have extremely strong attacks, which I think is important to create rhythm
Mm-hmm.
in this case, because I don't want them to be like in the front. I want them to just be there and create an like hypnotic experience.
Sure.
So and then all of the rhythm. This is some very wood-like kind of.
Sure.
The main reason that I use Logic so much, other than it's my comfort zone, is that it has some things that I think, some internal synthesizers that only Logic has, that is so incredible that I can never get rid of it. And one of them is this sculpture synth. I just think it's the best physical modeling synth there is. I think it has. I mean, Ableton has Collision, but I really think Sculpture is so much better than Collision. It has so much more depth. So to create these kind of like this like physical modeling things, I think it's extremely powerful. And also, it has Logic also has the delay designer, which I think is also one of the most powerful tools there is for delays.
Awesome. A couple
Yeah.
questions from the chat. Do you
Mm-hmm.
vary the arpeggio notes as the arrangement progresses, or is it the same arpeggiation throughout?
I vary them in it's the same arpeggio, but
Mm-hmm.
I have a LFO that is not set to rhythm, that goes over a shapeshift that switches the octave of the arpeggio. So it's like a random,
Yep.
randomly sweeps through the octaves. Like so, it's very slightly randomized. And I also see the automated things as kind of a variation, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second question, you touched on this a little bit, but Forrest is asking, your what do you think are the best synths for textures and drones?
Textures and drones.
Yeah.
Um, I my method of making textures and drones is if I play this whole package, this purple one, this is my like texture drone kind of channel, and I think that the best way to make textures and drones is to not have one drone or one like do like 20 channels and make them play once a while and have a lot of different textures in every different synthesizer and make them not like don't create one like drone track, create 20 drone tracks and make them have a little bit different like textures and make it like and make them hits like different, like make one every 8 beat, one every 20 beat, and one every fourth beat. So that's how I work. I don't work with like one pad or one drone. I work with like 20 and I make them very sparse. What do you say?
Yeah, sparse.
Sparse. Yeah.
I find that to be a very exciting idea. I think in the next track I make, I mean, I've always been in a one drone world my entire life, and yeah, I just never thought to vary my drones. So this is an
Yeah, that's how.
exciting idea. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's
I just never
yeah,
thought
yeah.
to. So I'm gonna do it now. I'm learning.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just because I think it becomes too boring if you just like make one. On the other hand, if I would give give like advice on which synths to use, in any I think you should have like one good synth in every like genre of synth. Like you should have one good physical modeling, one good granular that you trust and like, one good all the like additive, subtractive, synthesize, one in each. To me, I use for granular synthesis, I use the Iris 2 from Isotope,
Mm-hmm.
and for FM, I just use Logic's own, and for physical modeling, I use Sculpture, Logic's own, and then for everything else, I use the Surge. This it's also free right now. It's
Oh,
open. Yeah.
great,
So.
awesome.
Mm.
Um, just in the, I mean, we're only supposed to do an hour. I mean, we can just keep going. That's totally
Yeah, yeah,
fine.
for sure.
But I mean, I'm happy to keep going because I'm just learning a
Yeah,
bunch here. Maybe let's jump through a couple more textures from this V2. Then let's show
hmm
people what you got going in your V3.
yeah. Let's see what. Okay, so maybe this could be interesting because all of these. This is one of the. This is from the drone tracks, and I think maybe it could be interesting because here I did all of these four have the exact same MIDI thing going as you see, but they all have hits a little bit differently. So this is something I do a lot. Like I make the exact same kind of MIDI. The MIDI says the same, but one of them maybe have a long decay. One has a long attack. One has a long. So something hits in the back end of it. Something has a so it makes the whole chord come a little bit more alive to me. That you make
Great.
basically work with a lot of tracks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, all the, it's a track. It doesn't follow the structure of house music. It doesn't have the breakdown and doing all the dropping the kick and all the typical arrangement things. On one hand, it's a track that's, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it's somewhat of a loopy track, but at the same time, I never get bored when I listen to the track because of all the subtle interplay of slowly and fading in and out in so many different textures. It just never gets boring. I could listen to this for hours doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going for, and then I mean, you can always. I mean, I have some tracks, things with the tracks that I'm not happy about, and then, of course, but that was the general idea, and I think that committing to that idea very early was essential to making it work. Otherwise, if I was thinking a lot about having a break in this track, it would fuck up the whole track. I was like committing so hard to just make it, you know, what it is now, I
Sure.
guess.
And to that note, I just wanted to explore that idea. You know, the idea of adding a break. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you think about, so obviously there's DJs, I'm one of them, who plays your
Mm-hmm.
music, plays it on dance
Mm-hmm.
floors,
Oh.
use it in DJ mixes. Do you think about the dance floor when you're making music, or do you think about the way that people will consume your music?
I think very much, but only for headphones.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we spoke a little bit about this, but I think to me it was very hurtful in a way. Not hurtful, but it was a learning experience to have it work on dance floors because um, I want it very much to be like a private experience. I think that's one of the cool things about electronic music. It's that it's so like if you listen to a guitar, you can always hear the room the guitar is like it's played in. You can like almost like watching a scene from a film in a way to watch listen to a guitar. But like
Mm-hmm.
listening to a sine wave, it's just from you directly into the. It's almost like it's so direct that it's. And I think to me, it's one of the strong features of uh, of electronic music that it can really like be so private to me, and I want like the I want to make music for headphones, like from me to another person. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also like, if I go to a rave, I fucking hate dancing with someone.
Ah,
I
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to be. I'm one of those guys who is in the corner by myself, closing my eyes. I prefer a super dark.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Totally, totally. That's part of the
So
reason why I became a DJ, so I can just be in
mhm.
my headphones and I don't have to talk
Yeah,
to people.
yeah, yeah. For sure, for sure.
So, there's this, you mentioned a couple times it came up where creating music is a very private thing, and you want to have this direct conversation with who's listening to you.
Hmm.
Two questions: do you get feedback from your other producer friends, saying,
Hmm.
what should I change or what direction should I go? That's question one. And question two is, how does the process look? I kind of know the answer, being on the label side.
Hmm.
How does the process look, and how does it feel when you work with a label if they have
Hmm.
feedback or suggestions, asking you to change something that's very, very private and personal to you?
Um, on the second question, I really don't. I'm very good at killing darlings in a way. I mean, sometimes I have a little bit of an issue with like if I don't like what it makes. If somebody would try to create something that I really didn't like I don't know if there was like I think we had a small discussion about like a breakdown of a
Yeah.
track, and that to me is a little bit that's like my maybe sometimes the only thing I can feel that it's a little bit it changes my idea like a little bit, but otherwise I'm always super happy to be like criticized in a way. But also I think you have to learn to take criticism
Mm-hmm.
like it and know how to you have to also know the person who gives the criticism and what they usually say about stuff. I have this idea like when I send tracks, I never send one track to maybe sometimes, but usually I send like 10 tracks. And then instead of saying like what do you think about this track, I say which of these tracks do you
Oh.
like?
Uh huh. Uh
And
huh.
then if they like 3 of them, I you know maybe some of them yeah it's more I just want to know what like which ideas like pop out in a way. I very rarely like ask somebody if one mix is better than the other or something like that. It's to me it's not very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean it's
Mm-hmm.
good, it can be good, but that's the way I do it. And also in terms of labels, I've had contact with very big labels like that wanted to release music, and you can kind of feel like when you send stuff. I had one, I don't gonna name the label, but they wanted me to send tracks, and out of 25 tracks they liked one and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, I say no right away, because I'm not willing to compromise like what I do in that way. And I'm if it works like that, I'm not will be able to work with them, because if they like one of then it won't be a creative process. It will
Mm-hmm.
just be
Mm-hmm.
like it just will be something that's, I mean, it's not a good. I don't think it's a good. It's not a good corporation. I think that the best thing you can get is that somebody's like opening up to you being creative, and they're like trust you, and they like, I mean, sometimes it's good. I mean, I work with a lot with Hypnus, and Michel is one of my absolute best friends, and he's much more of a friend than he's a work partner.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I trust him very much. I trust but I also know what's his judgment. Like, I know that he has, these days you go to labels for a certain sound almost, you know, you go to a certain label, the labels are almost more of a, almost like genres.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's always going to be a place for a certain track. Like, you just need to find the place for it.
Sure, sure, sure.
So that's how I see the process, I guess. It's just, you have to learn how to take criticism, and how to, like, you know, make your way through your mind and other minds.
Yeah, and I
If
feel,
that made any sense at
yeah,
all, I
no,
don't know.
it did. And I think there's a line that you walk, which is on one hand, you have to, like you said, kill your darlings, have a certain amount of detachment from your work and be open to criticism. But on the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, you have to draw a line for where you're willing to compromise.
Yeah, yeah, for
And you
sure.
have to figure out where you fit in the middle of that
Mm-hmm.
spectrum. Are you going to be pushed around for someone trying to release something that doesn't represent who you are, and at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, is there
Yeah, yeah,
feedback that you trust from someone who you respect?
for sure, for sure. But then I also have said, everyone I have worked with always been phenomenal. I have never had the experience of working with like a label who wasn't willing to like compromise, or I've never had a bad experience within this music with releasing other like rock music and stuff. I had bad experience, but I never I got to experience a bad. But I also, I got a little bit older when I got into this, and I think that I knew very early that if somebody wanted to compromise too much on like, especially also if like maybe you made 20 tracks 2 years ago that sound a certain way, and now you don't sound that way anymore, and you can kind of feel of that label that they want to release the things you made 2 years ago. Maybe then you should consider not
Mm-hmm.
releasing there, because it's not where you're at right now, like. And yeah, that's how I perceive it. I much rather, I mean, I can only do what I'm doing at the moment. If it's good for somebody or not, I mean, I don't care if it's a good, big or small label. I just want to collaborate with someone who's willing to be where I'm at. You
Sure.
know.
So I want to get into Project 3, but I think what we're touching on here is a really interesting thing
Mm-hmm.
for me to explore with you, which is the way I know you as a friend and a person, but the
Mm-hmm.
way I perceived your music before I knew you is I always felt how do I your music I feel it's like art music in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
way,
yeah.
and then I learned your intention isn't for dance floor hits or for hitting the
Mm-hmm.
top of the charts or these kinds of things, this authenticity and this, I hate to use the word, this underground feeling
Yeah, yeah,
comes
yeah,
through.
yeah.
Taking all this into account, I mean, assuming you agree, how do
Mm-hmm.
you visualize success musically in your career, and what are the things that you want to get out of releasing your music?
Mm-hmm. Um, I mean, I've reached so much further than I ever wanted to reach with my music. I think, like, of course, I wanted to want to make better music. Like, that's. But I mean, I could never imagine. I basically did all I wanted to do, like within this music. So I really know I have no place else to go. I mean, of course, I want to play. It's always fun to play live, but you only want to play live if you're feeling good about playing live. If you feel like you have something to tell, if you have a story to tell, uh, then I want to be in line with what I'm doing at all times. I don't want to be bigger than I deserve, if you say so, or like I want to. Yeah, if that answers the question, maybe I got off.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's. I mean, it shines on your, what
Mhm.
you're motivated by, which is creating music that authentically represents you, and the
Yeah, yeah.
audience and appreciation and respect that you received is more than you have asked for. So you're already there.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah, of
you're
course.
where you want to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, I have to also put in that I've been playing music for a very long time, like other music, not the electronic music, and I play like with a girl that is super famous, and I've seen what that does, and I like kind of been like seeing. I've had success through someone else,
Mm-hmm.
uh, so and I'm not super jealous.
Uh-huh. What are some of the things that this could be interesting? We don't need to know who it is, but
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you see that come with fame that was a turn off to you?
Not so much with fame, but just that I know that like where you are at in your creative process is what's important, even if you're big or
Mm-hmm.
small or whatever. It's like if you don't focus on what you're doing and like feel good about that, then it's not worth anything. Like it's the creation always has to come first. Like of course you shouldn't be ashamed of if you get big or anything, but it's more about that than like the backbone of. I think one thing I will say that I think I actually heard you say and I think a problem with getting too big can be that uh, you get molded into what you're supposed to do. If you get into a
Mm.
certain, you have to make a certain type of track. Like
Mm-hmm. You get put into a box a little bit.
exactly, and that's super frightening.
Yeah. There's a thing. Maybe we talked about this, which is um, when music is your hobby
Yeah.
and you don't have the pressures of trying to succeed or get gigs or get signed on a
Hmm.
big label. There's this luxury that you have with your
Hmm.
creativity where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can explore and try crazy stuff out and go in any direction that you want and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
not think about all the other stuff that comes with it. And
Hmm.
it gets harder in my, and I'm not famous, I'm not huge, but in my experience I
Hmm.
find that it gets harder and harder to tap into that innocence as there's
Yeah,
more and
for
more
sure.
pressure when I think about a strategy and a direction I'm trying to go, and this.
Yeah, 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 for sure. But I think I think I don't know. This is just how I view you, but I think at least you have the thing that you're. I know maybe this is just. Um, I think if you're like a person like somebody like who makes hard techno, if you really painted yourself into a corner, like if you really
Yeah.
in the beginning of everything, if you do that, you're like I'm a hard trance guy, and you make only that. I never experienced that, but that to me is also scary. But again, then maybe you can see your career as maybe like a fantasy project, or like a I don't know, maybe you can say like a I don't know what do you call them, Iron Maiden or something. It's some
Uh-huh.
kind of maybe you can, it's a live, maybe
Sure, sure,
maybe
sure.
there's, but when you try to be like this private about your music and this personal about the music, it's very hard to then you always have your personality on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
In a way,
You have to
and
be
then
very
that's
vulnerable.
exactly, and that's maybe what makes it a little bit hard to be put into that corner you're talking about,
Hmm.
like when you are so personal and you have your name out there and you have your. And I feel not. I mean, of course, I don't have my name on my project, but to me, the project is very, very personal. I made a very conscious decision in the beginning when I started the project that it's going to be a project where I make what I just like to listen to, and that's a very hard thing to do, and it's very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable place.
but that's where so much beauty comes from as well.
Maybe, I don't know.
All right.
But of course, yeah, of
Oh,
course, it's very like the thing with the, like you said, like there's a certain like when you don't have any expectations, you can really do whatever. Like you can really, there's a freedom there, of course.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. So just knowing how to hold on to that and retain
Yeah,
it as long as we can until we're old
of
is
course. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
key
yeah.
to life.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's jump back into V3 here, and
Yeah,
let's.
let's do V free.
Oh, and just a quick note: a few people just commenting or tuning in on Facebook and Twitch. If
Hmm.
you want to jump in on the YouTube stream, you can pop in and ask questions. I see a couple questions here, but just in the interest of time, I'll save them until the end.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
YouTube is the hub
Hmm.
for the stream, and you can log in there at atishmusic.com/live stream. All right, let's
Hmm.
jump into V3, the final
Yeah,
evolution.
the fine evolution. Yeah, so I will mute, do the same. I will mute, and then I will. So this is the. I will take it from the middle, just to make it easier. So this is sound design of the third.
So, question in this
Hmm.
V3, all the things
Yeah,
that you had in V2, those are all printed down into that wave above.
yeah, they're all there.
Got it. So it's
So this is the. Yeah, exactly.
point
So
of no
this is
return.
this is point of return. Yeah, exactly. So this is just these kind. These are like stuff that's very much, not very much, but in your face. Very loud kind of sound design.
Definitely. Ooh, what's this?
This is no, it's this. Is it?
It
No,
sounds like
it's.
a caterpillar.
I think it's the, yeah, it's this. It's from, this is the sculpture synth.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like out of a horror movie almost. It's
Yeah.
haunting.
Yeah. So this is the, what I did, like the, what I thought here is also, like I was very inspired by like I was thinking about, I was reading a book by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. This, they're gonna sound academic and
Great.
yeah.
I love it.
But but I was very like he was talking about, it was, did a piece called Punkte, and he was all thinking a lot about how to, how we categorize music, and he, I wanted the phrases in this to be either groups of things or points of things.
Interesting.
So we have very like separated points, and the reason for that, I want them to be heard. I want them to be so far apart that they're heard as either a group of happenings or just like one point of time. So
Oh,
before you had all of these stuff that's are listened to as like emotion or like a drone or something constant, and then I wanted the third one to have these kind of, groups of and points. You know,
interesting. So
so that's what.
like a cluster where a few things happen all at once, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Got it.
And
Oh wow.
not it doesn't have to be related. So it's very simply made as like, I have like these sine waves that happens. One is on like I said, I think this one is on 12 bars. This one is on I think 9 or something. And then I have something that is on maybe they are the same. But this is like, all of these are happening. You see that they're different lengths of the loop. So
Yeah.
it's the
Yep.
same
Yep.
material, but and there's a long like, yeah, the different meters. All of them have different meters and
And
different textures.
and that also, the different meters is another reason why a loopy song doesn't feel so loopy, because it's not
Yeah,
the typical regular cycles that we're
exactly,
used to.
exactly. And I find it very useful to do it with these extreme long things and these points,
Mm-hmm.
because if you do it like very narrow, if you have like 1/7 and 1/8, it's creates like almost the same kind of loopy feeling, but to do this with a little bit more extreme lengths, I think is very useful. Like
Great.
to zoom it out a little bit.
Great.
Mm.
Cool.
So this is very like all of them are very, yeah. And then I added that this was important. I think this very a little bit more of an actual like sound of a chord to add like a chord that had some actual like personality.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Great. Uh,
And one last technical tips.
yeah. Yeah. Keep it coming. As
the,
long as
the
you don't have
own,
to go to bed, I'm fine. I could go all
no,
day.
no. For me too. I will be open long. I will be making music as it is. But yeah, I use the for reverbs. I always use the RC24 from Native Instruments because I think it's when you for me with reverbs. I think I love plate reverbs, but I think a lot of plate reverbs are very like I love sound so extremely good, but I think usually that's not really what you want in a song with so much going on. You want this reverb that sounds very good, but it's also very transparent.
Mm.
So when I make a track with this kind of so many details, I think the RC24 is very useful. It's a lexicon plate thing, and that's also didn't do that here. But the only time I ever sidechained anything is I put sometimes sidechain the reverb bus to the kick. That's
Got it.
yeah. Mm. Mm.
Cool. So now that were there any more textures you wanted to go through,
I
or
don't think
did we
so. I
cover?
think we yeah. I also have I can say that complementing the points. I have the groups. The groups is like a very these kind of what's it that yeah the mood no there is yeah this one yeah sorry the complementing the groups I have the loud arpeggios so I have that falling motion
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like a complement to the points I have something that is an actual phrase
Sure. So it's kind
yeah
of like a call and response going on.
a little bit yeah but like it strikes a little bit you know weirdly
Got it. Can we hear the two together to see how they interplay off each other?
yeah it's gonna be a very let's do like that and let's do it when they all play
I see.
yeah so it's
Has that cluster feeling.
yeah exactly and then you have these rare points in between with some harmonic values very sparse apart like that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very nice.
and sometimes they strike together and sometimes they don't and they come again
Ah, yes.
yeah
Beautiful.
yeah
Great. So then the last, let's say from the technical side, now that
mm-hmm.
you've finished your project one, project two, project three is where you have more room to make tweaks. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but project two, which you have in here, that's already been committed. How do you
Mm-hmm.
think about the mixdown process?
um I my feeling is that like if there is something that needs to be added, like if there's needs to be more kick to the kick drum or anything, I'd rather add like a extra kick drum to the kick drum
Yeah.
in this and then going back. Like I rather like put something on it. Like I'm very sure that I don't have anything I really dislike in all I have,
Mm-hmm.
and then I add shit to this instead of, or even doing stuff to the master channel uh, of the previous tracks. I don't want to go back from here. So if I'm gonna hot it up, I add stuff.
I find this great to hear and somewhat refreshing, and I think for you maybe you take it for
Mm-hmm.
granted because that's your process. I see it as
Mm-hmm.
your almost ruthlessly committed to committing ideas.
Yeah, yeah,
Where I feel pressured, you know, and I
yeah,
see these YouTube videos, hours and hours about creating the perfect mix and tweaking and, you know,
yeah,
doing all
yeah,
this, and it's like I feel so
yeah.
overwhelmed that I need to obsess over this perfect,
Yeah,
pristine mix down. But
yeah,
I think
yeah.
here it's just you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, oh, just, you know, add a little kick there, you know, if it's whatever, or just don't waste, you know, too much time,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, fretting over it, which is I think
yeah, yeah.
I find that interesting because I think your approach is nice because it makes me think about just the fundamental of what is the music all about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it about
Mm-hmm.
the obsession over these fine grained small details, or
Mm-hmm.
is it just about is the overall feeling good, yes or no,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
thing?
yeah. For sure. But it's like you said with Mark when you had your. It's like you can have all these pristine thoughts about stuff, and you can go into Carline Stockhouse, and then you can like do whatever. But then at the end of the day, it's just techno music.
Yeah.
So it's like it's in one. I mean, and then I think that's. I mean, to me, that is like to art. Art. The thing about art is what makes it interesting is to analyze it, like and the process of analyzing stuff and when while you're working with it or while you if you go to a museum whatever like what like why didn't something work and why and I'd rather do that analyzation afterwards when it's finished like why did I fuck this track up
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I'm not gonna know after 9 hours of looking into like something I'm not gonna know if I fucked it up like on the fundamental part of it I'm gonna know like in 1 year or 2 years or you know it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not it's not important enough for me to go back
Yeah. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And you're creating a wide body of work where, you know, if this
Mm.
one you got it wrong, you don't have your whole career hanging on this one
Yeah,
track that
yeah,
you're
yeah,
creating. It doesn't have to be perfect, and, you know, it's just
for
one
sure,
piece
for
in a big
sure.
collection of things where everything has its
Exactly,
strengths and weaknesses.
exactly as you said when you on your video there we talked about like it's the point of making a lot of music is not to treat your music like shit or like it's you you're still treating your material with respect it's just that it's you're gonna make more music it's gonna and you need to learn the whole process of making like an ep or an album there's like there's so much more like than you think in than you think you I mean maybe when you released an ep is the only like real time you know if it was good or not like you have to learn the whole process of it.
Absolutely, yeah, and that process is so unique to
Mm-hmm.
everybody. You know, you can watch YouTube videos or these things or whatever, and I think the big takeaway is only you know what your process is, and the only
Mm-hmm.
way to learn that process is just by fucking finishing lots of pieces of work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, you said it so good there. Of course. Yeah, it's very important. I think, and but of course, I mean, I wouldn't say that I would like to be a little bit more like not. I mean, I'm stressing over my method in a way. I think it's not. It's not a perfected method. It works well when I know what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of if I have like a label or I'm trying to finish something and I have like a hook, if I have a hook, like I really want to make something out of this, then I can run into problems. Like I struggle a little bit with that.
Mm-hmm.
I had to remake a lot of tracks this way, like from the ground up. But I'd rather do it from the ground up, like really redo the whole shit and keep that loop
Mm-hmm.
than
Mm-hmm.
than going back and tweaking the kick drum for 8 hours.
Sure, sure, sure.
Mm.
So I'm gonna wrap up with two more questions. One
Mm-hmm.
is, when do you decide something is finished? I find that finishing something is the hardest thing to do.
Ah,
So
yeah.
in your process, when do you decide something is complete?
Um, I I decide. I usually in the end process, I usually cut like a minute or something away because I also I like I said here, these three working with three arrangements for me like in this way makes it easy for me because I can just work it over like in the third loop I can just because it's so set I decided it's just when I did that final piece of the puzzle, I can just say that I'm finished. I can usually at once see that I could go back and do all of these things that would probably make it better, but I mean, for me, I have to be finished then. So that's how, when I decide. It's just I the the work is done, so to speak.
Sure. And then the last question, and you touched on this a little bit, but I'll ask directly: what are the one thing or some of the things that you want to improve in your own artistic process?
Of course, I would like to be able to do it the other way. It would be very nice, like to do it with all the fancy groups and all of the fancy, side compressing and all of that. Um, and I tried like to get a little bit more of that method going, but also I realized that it's not really for me.
Yeah.
But I would like to make an album that is a little bit more, be a little bit more uh, learning the process of making more albums than EPs. Like being as I go back to this, sometimes I can feel like layer 2 without layer 1 is a full song, and to me that's what I need to learn is to like to be not more minimalistic, but be a little bit more rely on fewer elements, rely on like be a little bit more confident in certain areas. That's what I'm going to focus on.
Oh man, confidence in making music. The
Yeah,
age
of
old
course.
battle, right? The age old battle.
For sure, for sure. And I also wanted to include a lot of. I've tried now with Fiverr to work with like vocalists and stuff like that. I always had the dream to work with. One of my favorite artists is The Bug, if you know him,
Mm-mm.
who works with a lot of Jamaican artists. I would love to make like a experimental like toast, like a dancehall album. That
Yeah,
would be
I would
that's
love
one of
to
my
hear that. Oh,
this music with dancehall.
oh, I support
That
that
would be.
100%. Well, cool. This was awesome. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much.
I just love talking to you, and I think you have a really unique, authentic, great perspective on music and the process.
Mm.
Any parting thoughts or anything that you want to get
No,
off your chest?
no. I just want to send some grace your way and say that it was. I'm so glad that we met and we get to spend some physical town time together before this,
Yeah,
after the whole Corona, before the whole Corona
yeah,
bullshit. And
yeah,
I really hope we get to meet again and hang
definitely,
out. And it was, as always, completely lovely speaking to you.
definitely. Everything you said, I agree. I can't wait to see you in person again, and thank you for your time. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you.
and thanks for everyone who tuned in. And if you like this video, be sure to hit subscribe. I'm going to host a different guest every month from all artists who I respect and from music of theirs who I love. And I also have a Patreon program. A lot of the questions and discussions that David and I had today are inspired by my artist mentorship program. I work one-on-one with students, and we do monthly sessions to help move you forward in your music making and your career. The link to that is in my bio. And enjoy the rest of your day. And I really hope this helped you. It definitely helped me. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.